Hello, welcome to Low Code Campfire. This is episode number 171 for November 8, 2024. Today is another Open Lines Friday. We'll talk about what you want to talk about, but of course, we've brought some things to talk about as well. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for PlantinApp. We have Patrick Anderson on the call today, too. Patrick is Technical Success Manager for, did I say I was Head of Support? Hopefully I had Head of Support for PlantinApp, Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager for PlantinApp. And yeah, we'll be digging into some topics today. This is an event we do every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time to get together and talk about PlantinApp in general, what's going on in your implementations of PlantinApp in specific. So we do hope that you would join us in the live webinar. We record all these and put them out on YouTube. You can get to them on the Campfire playlist at youtube.com/PlantinApp. We run this agenda every time. We always say hello because we're a friendly group, and then after that we'll go around the campfire and start with first call and anything you asked us to get into first, and then we choose from some of these other topics, contributions, what's going on in our community website, feature requests. And then after an hour or so, we go into afterglow. We turn off the recording, raise an adult beverage or a virtual adult beverage, and enjoy each other for a little bit longer. So do enjoy, engage with us, jump in. You can show and tell or use the chat window, but just pretty informal format. You can submit questions and topics in advance using this QR code or by sending them to support@plantinapp.com. Hello, all.
Hi, good morning.
We jump in with first call. Did anybody bring something that you want to talk about or ask about?
Yes, I do have a quick question. If you don't mind, I've got a process every month. It's a cool little thing. It's an automation, and the last couple of months it hasn't fired off. So I guess the general question would be, how does one? I know that I can put on error things inside of the automation, but what happens if the automation doesn't happen? Where is that recorded so I can debug it?
Well, yeah, that's kind of a that is a little bit of a tough question when automations don't fire. Couple of questions. Are you on our most current version of PlantinApp or behind? Or
Yes, in fact, this is one. Well, that's a good question. It's 126. I don't know if
yeah,
it's
that's the
got
current
hot
version.
fixes.
Yep. And I don't know that there's any hot fixes particular with that, but just making sure that we're debugging,
Right.
the most current version. And
Now, one thing I
then,
did notice was the if it doesn't fire question. There's three options. You leave it blank because you haven't selected it ever, or you fire it off or do nothing are the two other options. And it was blank. So as of yesterday, when I noticed it didn't go off, fire off, I set it to fire now, which I assume means that um, the next time it checks, and if it didn't fire when it's supposed to, it would fire exactly right then.
yes. And what kind of a trigger do you have on that?
It's a cron trigger. So every 5th of the month at 9 o'clock.
Okay. And is that 9 p.m. like a time when users are typically not on your system?
Um, there's not much in the way of people on the system. I put it on a development system, not on the main system. So there's no public facing stuff on it at all.
Okay. Um, so all that is kind of background, and Patrick, I would love you to keep me on track on this, but I think the general problem that you're having is keeping your site alive, and that if you were to make some configuration changes to keep the site alive, then the automations would fire. But when nobody is hitting the website, IIS has some settings that lets it go to sleep, and
Oh,
save
yeah, of course.
sources.
Yep.
And so if you keep it alive, then it's awake when the cron trigger hits its time and then succeeds. The thing that you change, the setting to say fire when whatever, may um, help, but I would suspect more help would be to make sure that it's running.
Got it.
Yeah.
So a keep alive on the site. Okay, cool.
You can, and actually, I've got a. Let's see if I can. I think I can put this up on the screen and send it to you as well. Let me find an article, and if you want to open a support ticket, I can send it your way as well. Let's
Okay.
find. Yeah,
The latter would be fine if you've got other folks that want to chime in. I'll remind you via the support ticket. That would be great. Thanks.
sure. So this article just talks about the things to do to make that happen. And this is an internal article. It's not part of our documentation. I suppose that would be a good idea too. But at the IIS manager level, you want to change the advanced settings to be preloaded. Enable the preload enable to true, so it says it's make sure it's always available, and then there's an always running setting, and an idle timeout to set that so that it never goes to sleep, and so there's all these little settings that if you set them, it'll keep it awake.
Here's a question, and I appreciate the idea of the keep awake concept, but the site that the automation is running on, again, the trigger is once a month at 9 o'clock. So if it goes off on the 5th of December at 9:05, 12 o'clock, I don't care. As long as it goes off that day would be great. Will it go off eventually? Is the go to sleep, if nobody hits the site, will it never wake up, or is it just a really large sleep timeout normally?
I think that trigger is only going to get. So first of all, this is without testing. I'm not certain,
Sure.
but I'm reasonably certain that if the site isn't awake at the point that trigger gets evaluated, that it might not ever run, right? It doesn't. The cron trigger says, okay, while the site is running, this cron trigger is being evaluated, and then all of a sudden it hits the time and runs. But if the cron trigger doesn't fire at the appropriate time, I'm not sure that there is a catch up for that one.
Oh, okay, got it.
I believe that's correct. Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, that setting that you changed, the fire now, that's if the when the job triggers, if it misfires for some reason, then it automatically tries again. But if it doesn't have a chance to fire at the time that it's supposed to, then I don't think it will.
Oh, I see. That's the thing I wasn't clear on what exactly is the cron trigger. So if it doesn't fire until 9:01 and it looks at the trigger, the cron code, whatever that, the 6 or 7 line code, it's not that time that it just comes back and looks at it later. So if I miss 9 o'clock, it won't run at all ever until the next 5th of the month at 9 o'clock. Hopefully we catch it then. Do I understand the cron trigger application correctly then?
Yes.
Right. I think we're saying the same thing. If the site isn't running when the cron trigger should fire, then the cron trigger won't fire.
Gotcha. All right, good to know. Thanks.
I think you'll solve a lot of your problems by keeping the site active.
I've also had a a client who decided they didn't want to do these changes to the IIS and just use a keep alive service, and that they have some success with that too.
Okay,
So that's
got it.
just a service to hit the site on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I've seen that, for example, with within Amazon services EC2, I believe it has the ability to do that, and then there's just other services, and it's kind of a common thing with DNN, right? I think there was seems like there was a little program specifically targeting that years ago. So I think this is kind of a
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there was, that's for sure. It just seems, I guess maybe the better thing to do is to figure out a different kind of trigger. It seems for doing one thing once a month to have a computer constantly running, all those resources constantly used just to fire something off once a month. Maybe there's some other way of doing that. Maybe let some other system send a message, or set a bit somewhere, and then whenever the site runs, if that bit has been set, go ahead and send the news out. So I'll think about both ways.
Yep. We I've changed over. I don't think the amount of resources. It's not that that it keeps it running continually. It's rather that it keeps it from going to sleep. So it keeps it warm in memory for when it does get called. I suppose, yeah, I suppose like the cron trigger and things like that are running continuously, so that there is a small amount, but it's really pretty minuscule, pretty efficient, I think. I suspect if
Okay.
you find that it's functional, that the site is warm. The other thing that you'll experience then is when you browse to the site, it'll respond almost instantly as compared to that, whether it's a 5 second or a 15 second, depending on your resources. That first hit, you can tell when your site's been asleep, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that will significantly reduce if you set these settings. I don't think it's hard on the server. It's just that the defaults are to completely page it out and give a slow response.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
So, Don, is it okay for your site to sleep in between these times?
Yes.
Like it doesn't need to do anything else in particular?
Right now, it's not doing anything else. It's a development site, and when I go in and want to test out a new theory and plan an app, I'll go there. But it's behind the scenes. It's my Sprocket stage site.
Well, just a thought. I mean, you could let it go to sleep and then configure a keep alive that would only fire on the day that you need it. So it would be running on the critical day, the critical time, and then it would go back to sleep. So
No, it's a possible.
it's
Yeah.
just a server request, on one of your other systems. If you were to design an automation that on a site that is going to be running, create an automation that runs a service request to that target website, and that will wake it up. You could have it run a couple times, like before your window of need, and maybe during, and one or two times after, to catch everything, and then let it go back to sleep.
It's an interesting concept too. And there's some very busy sites, but I'll look at both, because like you said, if there's very little resources to worry about, then just go ahead and do it. Let it do it. It's not like, this computer is not doing anything. There's a bunch of sites on the box. So having just a little bit of memory allocated and keeping that site alive all the time, I guess that'd be no big deal too. And then also don't have to do any further development, so I can move on to the next project.
Or worry about whether or not your secondary thing fails to run.
Yeah, that's true too.
And yep. And then you had mentioned the set a bit kind of a solution, which could also be that from that busy site. So if you're going to bring a second site into the mix, it could be the thing that does an API call that triggers the job rather than an automation that triggers the job.
Right.
Anyway, lots of ways to skin the cat, but the underlying problem is that the site's gone to sleep. Cool.
Great.
What else, anybody? Or do you have another one, Don?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Yeah, small group. So, Mark, did you bring anything today? Or shall we just dive into our prepared topics?
Well, as a matter of fact, I've been working on a keep alive process.
Welcome. Time to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Well, I pretty much I needed to replace my keep alive service that was free, and they just changed their term of service so that it's can only be used for not-for-profit. So I just used the site that's always running, and I created a keep alive process that runs on an automation. It goes out to all the sites in a list, and it runs a server request. That keeps it running. That's enough to keep it running, and then it also reports back to let me know if the site has changed status, meaning it's not responding or the keyword that it's looking for on the page is not present anymore. And it lets me know if there's a change in status. So do all this with Plant and App, and I couldn't be more pleased.
So since you entered I can't remember whether it was a community or a support ticket, I recall that what you're doing is using our server request action to hit the server.
That's right. Yep.
Which is pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you just, maybe Don needs to get on your list.
Yeah. Well,
yes, I was thinking that might be a good idea. You have a new business opportunity here.
and you made me think about scheduling the action of the server request. So like I didn't think of putting it on a schedule. I just put it on every 5-minute schedule, but yours is an interesting use case.
I was thinking of a less technical and more economical solution for you. If the Keep Alive service company is saying it has to be a nonprofit, you, I'm sure, have plenty of nonprofit customers. Arrange a deal where they provide or they get that service, put it on one of the planning apps that you have for one of those customers, and let it run there.
Right.
Cool. All right. So prepared topics. Version check-in. As we mentioned, we're on version 126. We're continuing work on getting 127 out the door. Focuses on quality, so it's rather than particular deadline. So, but in any case, I mentioned it last week. I'll continue to encourage anyone who's not on 126 to keep moving forward towards 126. And I still didn't fix the so this is 125 right here, 126 right here. So we have representing the most current version has not been adopted. I would like for that to be the most popular one, and it's not yet. People haven't moved up to it yet. But this is 125, so we have most people at the 124, 125 area. So anyway, keep encouraging you to think in terms of moving forward.
I pushed that number up for you a little bit this week, Don or Dale.
Absolutely, I saw that it crept up by a few sites, so that was good.
So I got to ask, because I ask all the time, but I'm wondering, are there any of the folks that have gone to 126, have they also pushed their version of DNN, or are they keeping their version of DNN at 9.11 too?
I don't. I could probably answer that. Now, as a matter of fact, I will when Patrick is going to show some stuff here in a minute, and I'll see if I can look that up behind the scenes, who's running what versions. So
Yeah, if there were, I mean, that would be great. I don't need you guys to change your official stance on what version you support, but it would be nice to know that you know those statistics, and I can judge for myself if half the folks
yeah,
are on a newer version and 126, then I'd feel more comfortable on production servers moving up as well. And there's a few people that really should have it moved up, but don't want to do both and then
Yep.
not be supported.
Yep. And again, we're not. It's not a we won't support, but it's we stick with the recommended just because we know it's tested and you're not going to run into issues, and we don't want you to run into issues. But yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So talking about a few things that we've got going on now. We have on our I think I've mentioned before, but we have a internal program called end-to-end testing. The idea is we create some forms. We use a product called Cypress that allows things to run on an automated basis, and so we have a nice contained process that runs every day in the evening, and we can run on demand as well. But it runs through. We're now up to about 200 tests every day to test to see whether the forms respond back in the way that we expect. So we design tests that test out individual features. We are expecting certain results, much like what Mark was talking about a minute ago, that calling sites and expecting to get a result back. We are running a form and expecting to get a particular result back. So long as it does, everything's fine. So that's what we consider our end-to-end testing. And then when if we get errors, then that gives us, if it rather we get a different response, that causes us to dig in and see if something has happened that changes whether that's an intentional software change, an aberration, or a regression, whatever it is, we dig in. And then if it's a regression, we hope that we catch those internally rather than you catching them. That's the whole point of this stability. So we just started up a week ago our end-to-end testing for 1.27, and in running through that, we caught a couple of things that have changed, and making the decision to go back and work some more on the areas of change so that and it was, in this case, it was a bunch of error messages. So instead of returning back the same error messages as before, in the area of user management, like you're trying to create a user or change a password or something, and the error messages became more generic in 127, and so we've gone back and we're reworking that to keep the same error messages, so that we don't want anything to change unless there's a reason for it. So just pointing out that we're doing the work. We're trying to work towards stability for you version by version. Is that any questions on what I was just trying to describe there?
Nope.
Good. On my other screen here, I was working on this question that you had, Don, and there's about 10 sites that are running some version of 9.13, either 3 or 4. And one of them is you on your staging site. There's some that are test sites and dev sites. So it's not like a wide, and I don't really know some of these, whether they're actual production sites or not. So it's not like it's a wide adoption, but I'm not getting support requests from these sites either, so that's a good sign. We there was one version of 9.11 that we had CPU issues with one of our I don't know, 125 or something before. So a 9.11 with one particular version of Plant and App that we since have solved and supported, but there were cases when people getting ahead of us on the DNN version caused them some grief, but we're not seeing it. I have no reports of it at this point.
Got it. Sorry, my connection here. I'm remote, so I'm using my phone, which is unusual, and the headset connection sometimes fails. And so, right when you were explaining all that, it kicked out, but I heard most of it. And in case I missed a prompt or something, I'll just say it sounded to me like most of the people that are using more advanced versions of DNN are doing so in probably test development environments. And so maybe the best thing to do is to keep it pretty much where it is for the time being.
Exactly. It's not like it's wide use yet. There's no complaints, but it's not widespread use.
Got it. And certainly those that are using the earlier versions, the 9.11 versions of DNN, can certainly go to the 126. And so I could move those sites. I would have rather have done it in the opposite direction, but I can certainly do it in this direction.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Do a backup. That's what I say all the time. Do a backup. All right.
Yeah.
Patrick, would you've got a new feature, or if I don't know, we've discussed it very much, but we'd love to show it off. And you've been testing it.
Sure. You can take a look at that. So I think you guys are probably aware that for a while now, we've had a calendar view in listings. And it's been marked experimental, which it still is, but we've made some improvements to it and given it some capability that it didn't have before, and it makes it much more usable than it has been previously. Are you seeing my calendar screen?
Yes, we have.
Okay, good. So what's changed is before we actually, you know what? I think I actually have. Let me just pause for 1 second here because I think that this might help. And bring something else up. Perfect. Drag this over here. Okay, and you're seeing my screen again now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to point out that previously, all we had the ability to do was to display something that had a date and time on a calendar. So this event right here, if I navigate to the day, you can see that it's here, and you click it and there shows details, and that's about it. Anytime you create an event, it always creates it as a 1 hour event, and so that's the ability that we had previously. And I can't select dates or times here or anything like that. So I just wanted to give a little context on the changes. So now we have the ability that we can actually create events that span multiple days, or also that span more than an hour. So I can say this event is from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Or 2 to 4 p.m. And we've added the ability to enable selection on the calendar. So if I say that I want to do an event from 10 a.m., I can drag a specific amount of time, and this kicks off a JS trigger, which I wonder if my site has. I didn't refresh the page when I came here, maybe because that does not. Oh, there it is. Oh, Oh, too late. That happens to me sometimes anyway. Let me go back to the week view here. So if I, once again, say I want to create that event right there, a 2-hour event from 10 to 12, I click that, and this is the result of a JS event that we've added to the settings, and I'll show the settings in the calendar in just a moment. But now, so it automatically fills in that that time frame for me from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. as the start and end date. And then all I have to do is just add a title here. And that's all I need here. Like that. And now I have that event in place. And if I decide that I want to do a full day event, I can do that from the month view also. But if I just click here, it automatically opens up it opens up and it specifies that it's a full day, and making it a full day helps with the display on the calendar. So Campfire Day sounds like something that I'd enjoy. So add that. And then the other thing that we've changed is that the default behavior that we were seeing here, if I click this event, I'm seeing a detail view over here, and that's all I can do. That's the only option I have for clicking an event. In our new functionality here, that's the default behavior, and it still happens if you don't set something else. But I've had this set up so that it does something else, and it's opening the detail. It's opening the edit form, but I could easily set that so that when I click it, it opens up a nicely formatted detail view of the event, so I can get all the information about that event. So we have that. I'll close that, and I think that about covers it. So let me show you the settings that are involved here. If I go to the events listing and switch to views and look at the calendar view, what's changed is that previously we just had a date. We had the title default view and a date field for the date field that was there has changed so that it's now the start date and time field. And so you specify from the fields in the form what's going to be your start date. You specify from the the fields that are coming into the listing. To clarify that, the fields that are coming into the listing, you specify from those listing fields which field is the start date for your events and which field is the end date for your events, and then which field is going to be the Boolean property that indicates whether it's a full day or not. And this right here, this checkbox is what enables that ability to drag or to select an hour or a day, or drag and select an hour or a day, and have something happen when you do that. And if you turn this off, then that ability is disabled on the calendar view. But if you turn it on, then you can specify an on selection JavaScript, and in that context, you have JavaScript objects, a start object, an end object, and the is full day property, and you can use those in your JavaScript. And so basically what I'm doing here is opening the edit form pop-up and passing in the values to the form to populate the form with the start time and end time that I selected. And if I click on the month view or the top row of the weekly or day view, it'll give me the is full day is true property.
So on
And,
selection, on selection refers to new
yeah,
items
so
you're adding.
right. So I'm gonna copy this on my clipboard just to make sure. I don't think I'll lose it, but and save this and refresh. And so now if I try to select, nothing's happening. I was showing this before, but if I see now I can't select here. So with that enabled, and I did, my JavaScript is still there, so good. Save that and reload. And now I have the ability to say that, you know, I have the ability to select a time frame on the calendar, and it kicks off that JavaScript event and passes these the start date and time and the is full day property to my JavaScript. And I'm using that to open up an add event form.
Nice.
Yeah. So then, oh, and then the selection. So let me show you that also. If I go back into the events listing and views calendar, and this is the on item click. So if I just remove this JavaScript and save and reload, now when I click on an item, I'm getting that default behavior that was already in place, and that's to show a detailed view of the event in the right sidebar. So we added this ability to add some JavaScript here, and that has access to a JavaScript object called item, and item.id gives you the ID of the item that you're clicking on, and you could also get other properties from the item object. And the best way to see what you have available to you is to use that right there. You do a console log.item and you can see what you have. And I'll show that here in a second. So save it like that again, reload, and let me just go into the inspector here. Over to the console, and I'll drag that over after I do this. So I'm going to click on the event that I created earlier, and then now you can, there we go. And now we can take a look at what we have available to us. So that item it gives us full details about the item, and you can access the fields using you know say that again.
Array structure.
Yeah, using the array structure, right? So if you know that you want the title, you do you know, put in the value 1 for the field that you want to get the value of. So yeah, some really great improvements. Makes this the calendar view much more usable than it was before. So Mark, do you have any comments?
Well, thanks for asking. I'm admiring what you're doing there. That looks very nice.
Cool.
I was thinking some of that, it would seem you would maybe enable with like maybe just a checkbox instead of coming up with the JavaScript. I don't know. It seems like, you know, low code.
Yeah, so a little bit of context there. So this was actually something that was it's for a specific client, and they paid for this development effort. But what I wanted to just make sure that you understand is, and we hear that exactly what you're saying, but this is actually really complex. So, and kind of complex beyond my understanding of exactly why. But our ideal was that we wanted to have an action stack, an on selection action stack, and an on item click action stack. But the ability to do that was going to be very complex, and it's something that we hope to do someday. But our client paying for this didn't want to go that far and was okay with this this implementation. There's a lot you can do here with that. So definitely, I hear what you're saying. The idea would be that we would have an action stack, and then you know that's what we're used to, right? But someday, but just not yet.
Sure. And this gets you there a little bit quicker, or a lot quicker. And yeah, I like it. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, sure.
And thanks for appearing to expose that for the rest of us. When's that available, or what is that, 1.27 or what?
No, this is a hotfix in 126 that should be coming available maybe even today. But very soon.
Thank you, Patrick.
Patrick, not to put you on the spot, just trying to make sure I understand you. For people who are upgrading and they were using this and it had a date instead of a start date and time. That just
Yes.
that field was essentially renamed, right? So they'll still
Yeah,
have a
this
start
is
date.
right.
They won't have an end date, I assume.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So, but this whole thing is still labeled as experimental. Is that true?
Well, I thought it was, but it doesn't say that, does it?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Does your old one say experimental? Little internal housekeeping here. So.
Yeah, yeah. Events listing. Did this one go to sleep? Maybe.
I know where
Oh,
you can
I'm logged
keep
out.
alive.
Sir?
I know where you can get a keep alive.
Ah,
You're gonna have to start marketing that.
so part of this is going to sleep. Part of it is there's there's another setting for how long a site retains your login information, and so he ran into that thing, and there if we be happy to, it's a persistent something. I could find it, but
Yeah.
there's a simple web config setting that says let my login last for a month instead of letting it last for a day.
Let's see here.
Views.
Oh, it was not marked experimental. I thought that it was marked experimental before, but it's not.
Okay.
So,
just wanting,
yeah,
hoping that we've thought through the people that are upgrading to get a same experience without having to do a bunch of configuration.
hmm
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Thanks for doing
That
that.
looks real nice, Patrick.
Cool.
Good. Let me take back here. I have one that's worth showing, whether or not, yeah. So I encountered one this week that was, this really is I suppose we could call it a ghost story, but it has to do with list filtering. And let's see, I've talked about that one. I'll just do this one here. And I think it'd be really helpful to have it out there in the as a known characteristic of our export capability. So we have this. I worked with this list last week. It's just an entity, and it has this export button. And when you export, let's see where did it go here? When you export, all the content is being exported. And we talked some about last week about how that happens. I'll show it again here without the hyperlink detail stuff, but we're getting the 5 rows that are there. Okay, so let's do that, I guess. The 2 actions that are happening behind the scenes when you on the export button are that we do a create Excel from list, so that gets a file created, and then we use redirect to URL to send that to the browser. The current list is implicitly available here, so we don't have to give it a list name that we want to create when we're in a listing, and we don't give it a list name. It just assumes we're talking about the list in the listing, and it does it automatically. So we're saying include all fields. We're outputting it to, excuse me, to the Excel URL, absolute URL, and then we're using that URL as part of the download capability. So 2 quick actions and you've got your listing going to Excel. All right, so with all that said, here's the thing that I discovered, this dark corner of this of the product. If we filter this by rank, and so we're only getting 2 records, and click the export button, you would hope that the export showed the same thing as what you're filtering for, but in fact, it's going to show all 5 records. And what we discovered is there's a very easy fix for this. If we go into our design of the site and look at the settings and change the sync with URL to enabled, this one change changes the complete behavior. So now when I pick out a couple of ranks and have filtering going on, the filtering is appearing on the query string, and when we use export, export is going to use that query string to filter the listing. So now we'll get 2 instead of 5. And that works as well with search term. So New York Times and The Guardian here, if we export that and take a look at it, that filtering will work. So you get a completely different experience. So we have, New York Times and The Guardian here. So you get a completely different experience with that export functionality, depending on whether you're syncing with URL or not. I can't say that that's a feature, but it's, I mean, an intended feature, but that is an actual functionality. And so if you want to use the current list to do exporting, you just need to know that sync with URL is going to get you 2 different behaviors. Did anybody already know that? And I'm just, late to the party.
Well, I discovered it along with you, so.
Well, I did not know that, and I'm happy to see it.
Good, easy, good. That's really part of the point here. We want to shine a light on things that are in the product and make sure that you can take advantage of them as needed. All right. Let's see, let's close a couple of things here. Community forum, there was some back and forth about IMAP this week, which was and I guess there's also a little bit of history. We have in automation, we have the ability to do an IMAP trigger and also a pop trigger. The pop trigger is marked as obsolete, and at some point we'll take it out of the product. So we want to encourage people to use the IMAP trigger. Ben, who often comes to Low Code Campfire, he created this ticket, but had problems trying to use the pop trigger in his particular environment. Not exactly sure why, but it ended up with a job that he couldn't delete and wouldn't work, couldn't configure, couldn't save. So rather than fight with that, we pointed him towards IMAP. And just by way of anyone else following along with the IMAP discussion, when you do it, the first thing that as you configure IMAP, you have to tell it the server and some security things, and it needs to connect to the server. And just I guess throwing out a caution that if it's not working, if it's not bringing in your mail, you might want to check to see if you have aggressive network security going on and ports are being blocked, that you might get the IMAP might not bring in your email, and it might not explain to you why it's not. So if you're not getting mail, double check that you have full access to the mail site from your server. But okay, so that's background. And so the question that was being asked here is whether or not once you can work your way, the automation job is getting access to every email, then wouldn't it be nice if it marks them as read? And just pointing out this is not currently a feature of our IMAP action. It's fully able to read through an email box, but it's not able to manipulate the email box. So you can read it, but not mark them as read. The assumption is that this is something that is going to be looking at a box and doing some automations, but not but leaving the box alone so that the mail can still be read manually. So anyway, it'd be nice enhancements to be able to say that it was read or move it to a different folder if it was processed, things like that. But it's not there. And then one of the people on the call today has entered some new feature requests.
I
These
was
are,
busy this week.
yes. So I made the mistake of showing off how to flip things to detail only.
Sure did.
And this is a combination of, I mean, as Patrick has pointed out in times gone by, I'm a keyboard guy to the extent that I can type and click at the same time. I can get places faster. And so, for example, when doing a listing, let me find my default stuff here. When doing a listing, you can change whether or not something appears on, let's find our listing, live listing, sure, this will do it. For any given field, there's this whole visible on section, and being able to say whether it's the detail view. Sometimes, well, I think I'm sorry, we have these 5 different places. Whether or not it shows on the detail view is one of them, and then the other is which format of screen or all of them does it appear on. So you can click, and there's lots of clicking and choosing here if you want. But another way is if you're focused on something. So like if I click here and then hit the tab key, this is a standard browser functionality that I'm now focused on we're not getting any feedback, but I'm automatically focused on the next one. And the space bar toggles the field, so I can turn something on and then hit tab and hit the space bar again. So all I'm doing is hitting tab and space here to
Cool.
change my functionality. And let's see, when we add a field, let's add another field here, create by username. By default, it comes in looking like this with everything turned on, and I wanted to make it automatically turn all those things off. I think my shortcut is still set up here. I have a keyboard that allows me to record macros, and so when I hit the macro, it's doing tab space, tab space, tab space, tab space. So it's automatically turning all those, flipping all those the other direction. If I were to click here and do the same macro again, it would turn it on. So just keyboard shortcutting. And then so Mark, you were pointing out it might be nice to do some of that automatically. I'm not. So what was your?
Yeah, that's what it is. But I find that I do that quite a bit. I need to put things in detail view and get them out of the other views. It's repetitive.
Yep. And I think at one level the answer is the list of things that we would like to provide is so long that I mean it's a good idea, but not something that is going to quickly bubble to the top. I hate that answer, but that is the very real one. These things, and Bogdan reminds me, our CEO reminds me often that you have to remember how much you can do with it when it doesn't do it exactly the way you want. So if you were doing this as a developer and trying to decide how to get it onto mobile screens, but not large screens, it's a ton of work. So the fact that you can do it by checkbox is already a savings. We all want to improve and do it a little bit faster, but yeah, I have to remind myself of what we can get done with so little effort.
That's all right. I know how this process worked, but I did want to get it in there and get it recorded.
Absolutely. And then let's see, where did we go? So I haven't looked at these other ones, but these might fall into a different category. So there's commenting and uncommenting code, and that's certainly worth a look. Let's see what you've got here. SQL console. So in SQL Server Management Studio, Control K, C, so you can comment a block of code and uncomment a block of code.
You certainly can.
Hmm.
Use it all the time.
I will tell you, you're talking directly to the developer of SQL Console right now, and it's not me.
I was hoping.
Yeah, I don't know how possible it is, but it might be. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a keyboard shortcut. It could be a button. But what the concept is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
You'll like the
suspect
next one too, Patrick.
Yes, I think that one is cool too. Let's take a look. You want to be able to provide test run values for your tokens.
So you don't have to edit your code every time, twice.
Mm-hmm.
So out of curiosity, are core tokens supported automatically? It's the non-core that you're
In SQL consoles, tokens are not
supported.
they don't they do not resolve in the when you're just that's it's really submitting a it's a I wonder if there's a way we could I'm not sure, but what it's doing is running a run SQL action, and it's taking the text of your query that you enter and putting that into a run SQL action. And I don't know if there's a way that we could maybe add bind parameters, but that's possible. But Mark, is I get this, and something that I do because in most places I know that I don't think we yet have it on. Do we on drop down data sources? We don't have the bind parameters, do we yet?
Not in all places, correct.
Yeah, but in most places we have bind parameters, and something that I do is that I leave in my declarations with commented. I comment them out with double dashes, and so I leave my declarations there so that if I want to grab something and run it in SQL console, I have the declarations already in place that I can just and I even save the declarations with default values that I want to use in the future. And then all I have to do is just uncomment them and to run it in the SQL console. I know that's not an answer to what you're saying, but it's a practice that I've started.
So wait, you need to comment and uncomment a block of code?
I knew that was coming. You just walked right into it.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing, Patrick, but
Yeah.
both of these are just ease of use ideas. That's all.
Yeah, sure. But I do think that you got my mind worrying a bit there, thinking about if there was a way we could, since we're using a run SQL action, I don't know if there's a way maybe we can incorporate bind parameters in this front view here.
And whether or not that's consistent with the purpose. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
part of it too. But yeah. While we're here, and Patrick, you might be able to, you might know this. There was a while where I don't know whether this version is ahead or behind. That
You're
it's
using
not,
this is out of date. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because one of the things that that was asked of me to do, because this is the way I created it originally, but I was asked to put everything in brackets just so it can deal with the possibility that you might have a field that is not formatted correctly, or a field that's using a keyword or something like that.
yep.
And yeah, so I
So
wonder,
now you're generating this.
you're at 280. Yeah, and now it's doing that. Yep.
So I'm on one that's a little bit behind, and we can
Okay.
work on that. But I wanted to point out, this is a little internal housekeeping. You were doing something like this as well, right?
Yep.
One of the things that I encountered was copied this and put it into a run SQL action that app was resolving oddly, that it's still being considered as a token. And
That's interesting, because I think I've done that and it hasn't done that. But I wonder if there's something in your context that
makes me wonder. So
they're making it resolve. Yeah.
Just pointing out that if these things are actual tokens, they're going to resolve and then break the
Yeah.
So we get into a spot where you might have to remove the brackets, and so that's the flip side of what you were just you said you were asked to add them, and
Right.
I
I
was going to ask you to
personally,
remove them.
well, and I personally would prefer they not be there as well. But I do understand, though, that there is the potential, if they're not there, that you create a query that will not run, that will error. So but
Yes.
I think it's a pretty rare possibility, but there is that possibility.
Just a little bit more feedback from the peanut gallery. I routinely take those square brackets out
Yeah.
because I don't want my field names to be interpreted as tokens ever.
Right. Yeah.
So if you're putting them in automatically, that's creating more work for me now. So I'd have to
Yeah.
go through every time I use this console, I'd have to go clean all that out. It would make it a lot less desirable.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah. No, I get. Yeah.
Second peanut gallery, I concur.
Can you
Oh,
toggle
look,
that?
we have a special guest.
Maybe you could toggle that, Patrick.
Yeah, sorry, I came in late. I was in a meeting.
Yeah, I wonder if I was just thinking about that as you were talking about it. I wonder if there was a way that either offer two options or yeah, because I don't like it. I don't like it, but I was asked to do it. So there you go.
Presumably you were asked to do it by somebody who
Somebody who has yeah, they have override power on everything. Guess who that might be? I'm just kidding. No, we love him.
Yeah. So and then this kind of points out another feature of our product, which is that entities can be created that use reserved words, and there's I think there's 150 or 200 reserved
Yeah.
words in SQL, and so this this bracket functionality helps avoid the problem.
Yes.
Avoid that problem.
And it does make it closer to what you get if you do it in SSMS. It's syntactically correct. But yeah, I certainly prefer it without the brackets.
And Patrick, maybe your service could check for reserved words and put brackets around those.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it only gets yeah, it's always a little bit more complex than you think.
Yeah.
That's one of my brothers saying. Okay, so since Ben has arrived, and since we've already talked about him once, and since it's the end of our more than the end of our hour, I'm going to call it here. We appreciate that you showed up to Low Code Campfire. Hang around for a few minutes for Afterglow if you like, and we will see you again next week.